Welcome to a formal edition, or the Retro Reasonable Doubt. I'm your host, J. Julio Vela, along with my amazing co-host, Justin Harris. How you doing today?
I'm great. I get that accolade, co-host, temporary co-host.
Well, temporary co-host, producer, director. We wear many hats on this building.
We all have to. Yeah.
You know.
We also break the set down, and pretty soon they're gonna have us sweep in the hallways.
It's true. I'm super excited today because for everyone who's watching and all the community that's involved, we have an individual here who has led the transformation of pretrial here in Harris County and has been used as a model that many other counties throughout the country can look at. It's a very prestigious honor to have Mr. Kelvin Banks, the head of Pretrial Services, here on our show tonight. Hello.
Thank you so much. Hello. Good evening.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. And actually, for all of our very avid viewers, they noticed last week we replayed. We weren't on last week, and we replayed your first episode with us.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, which I found out was like 2 years ago.
It was in July, I think, 2017. So yeah.
It does not. Wow.
Yeah.
But now he coming back. He coming back to talk about some of his accomplishments, trials, tribulations, growth. Yeah. So let's start.
Well, because last time you were here, you had kind of just gotten into the job, right?
Yes. Yep.
And Pretrial Services was getting used to the new PR bonds that were being granted more en masse. Yeah. And I remember one thing that you said, because JV's, to segue into where JV was segueing, is you were asking for more money to be able to hire more personnel.
Yes.
Any updates on that?
Well, since we've arrived since October of 2016, our budget has doubled. Okay. And so we were about $6.2 million in 2015, 2016. We're well over about $13 million now.
Okay.
We're up 60 new positions. And so...
Did you say 60?
60 new positions. So when we arrived here, like our first 90 days assessment that we were kind of understaffed, underfunded in a lot of ways, and even underperforming from a staffing standpoint. Not because we didn't have good people that were trying, but we didn't have performance metrics in place. And so what we're trying to do now in terms of becoming a premier pretrial service agency is making sure that we're staffed up to deal with the volume here in Harris County. There's about it's declining over years, but it's about 84,000 AB misdemeanors and felonies arrests in a year as it's going down. That's about 7,000 in a month, about 233 in a 24-hour period, about 78 in an 8-hour shift. And so we had to staff up to make sure.
Wait. Can you do those numbers one more time?
So
you got those memorized,
yeah.
Right?
So,
wow.
So about 84,000 in a year, about 7,000 in a month, about 233 within a 24-hour period, and about 78 or so, if you will, if they come in.
Every 8 hours.
Every 8 hours.
Wow.
And so we had to make sure that we have enough staff to deal with that on the front end from an assessment and or bond recommendation standpoint. But then we also in the process now of staffing up on the back end because we have this increase in volume that you mentioned, that we have a 479% increase of people released on personal bonds in Harris County. So since January of 2015. So we have...
You have a chart.
Yeah.
Can I hold that up while you're
Absolutely.
talking? There's 479% increase in 5.5 years?
Yep, since about 4 years. Huh?
It's like almost like a
Yeah.
100% increase every year.
Yep.
And wow.
Let's
Your
talk-
office has been able to keep up with that all.
So this is our place where we say it hurts so good. So there's no way you can staff up. You can anticipate reform. You can say we want to get these things in place, but you need to quantify that request. Every time we went before Commissioner Court, we just didn't go in without metrics or numbers to say, hey, we just need numbers, but we need staff, but we went in with metrics. And then, and so once those numbers were able to vet out, we circled back. And so in some ways we were behind the curve as we were trying to staff up, because my whole thing is we want to staff up and be able to sustain. We want to staff up. I don't want to have to lay people off in 2 to 3 years because we can't sustain them, and we addressed a short-term problem with a long-term solution. So we're always constantly trying to balance that out as well and make sure we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Do you have a cabinet or a group that's at the executive level and you sit at the head or is it just whatever Mr. Banks says, Mr. Banks goes? Is it who are your key stakeholders and players in your design for your vision of pretrial services?
So within the department, it is my executive leadership team. So my deputy director is Dennis Potts. He's been with the department almost 30 years.
And where's he from?
He's originally from Louisiana.
Nice.
And so he's been in Texas more recent, but he's originally from Louisiana.
He came with you last time you were.
He was here with me last
time.
time.
He was
Absolutely.
yeah.
He's kind of like my bodyguard in a lot of ways. 6'4" bodyguard.
He's here, yeah.
Trying to keep me from some of the bruises I've gotten over the years.
I understand. And so he's your kind of, he has I mean, no one speaks on your behalf, but if he's speaking, the idea is that it's coming from you, and is that his role, or what would you say? How would you define his role?
Yeah, so he's in a very trusted position. He helps me manage the budget. He helps write the policies for the department. He's also responsible for our locations. We're in like four different locations. He's making sure that we're up and running in all those different locations as well. And we always, the last line on job descriptions, duties as otherwise assigned.
Yeah.
And so we fill a lot of stuff into that space. He's a very, very intelligent man, very, very historical, knowledgeable person as well.
30 years.
Yeah. When I give him credit for that, he often say he's the dinosaur in a lot of ways, but has a lot of institutional knowledge that we rely on, because it's important when you're making changes or doing things that you kind of understand the history so you won't repeat itself in some way.
But he's from Louisiana, but where did he come from before?
So he was a police officer at one point in time. I think he's done some stuff in parole as well. And so he's kind of been in criminal justice, if you will, for the most of his career.
Who else is in your executive, you say board or cabinet?
Executive leadership team.
Executive leadership team. Who else is in there?
So my executive assistant, Takesha Blacklock, she's kind of like an office manager, if you will. I also have 3 division managers. Aurora Roberts is over our defendant monitoring division. So her staff supervises this 479% increase in personal bond releases under our supervision. Troyce Carter is over our pretrial screening that does the assessments and the front end work at the magistration. And then we have Edward Jones, who's our in-house IT manager. In addition to that, we have a justice research manager by Dr. Whitney Threadcraft Walker, who is on staff, a PhD, that does all of our research stuff.
What's the research?
So we believe that in terms of anytime you're trying to reform a system, research should inform policy, and policy should inform practice. Then you take the data from the practice, do the research analysis on it, inform the policy, so on and so forth. And so we were fortunate, I think, late last year to have her come over from budget, where she's doing a lot of on-site stuff for us. We're working on a major initiative that she helped draft out as well with a Tier 1 research institution, where we're looking to improve court appearance. Arnold Ventures put out an RFP late last year requesting proposals for how can we improve court appearance. And so we submitted a letter of interest with a lot of local stakeholder support in January of this year. In February, we were welcome to submit a full proposal. In March, we did that. In May, we were notified that we were very, very interested, but go back and do these revisions. We submitted those revisions in July of this year, which is last month. And then so we're looking for some feedback, probably mid to September. But what that is, we're very, very excited about that initiative. We'll be using technology, if you will, to better oversee this population. So you can only staff up so much and so fast. And so you try to take advantage of technology to make sure we're holding these people accountable as they're being released from our supervision. Also making it convenient for them, because they can check in remotely, either on a smart app is going to be one of the technology platforms, a web-based check-in, and also a kiosk-based check-in. And so everything that we normally ask them in our office can be asked remotely on these 3 different technology platforms. And then those technologies will actually be embedded into a random controlled trial research design, so we can see the efficacy. Okay. What we're looking to do is to reduce the time on task for our staff, increase the accountability for the defendants, while at the same time increasing the convenience for them. Because there are this is not there's looking to improve public transportation here, but there are some transportation barriers for our population, and so these things will assist them as well. And so we're hoping that we'll see at the very least that it doesn't do harm to them, but we're hoping that it will actually increase their court appearance. And when we have the data to support it, we'll not only be able to inform our local practices, because there's a lot of limited research in terms of pretrial supervision. The only things that we know right now is that court text reminders are effective, and over-supervising people does them harm. And so with this initiative, if you will, we'll not only be informed what we're doing, but we'll be able to inform pretrial as a whole across the country. So we're excited about that.
So That's very exciting. Can I break some of that down?
Absolutely.
All right. So you said, so let's go a little bit reverse order. You said that things that you do know about from research, or that I guess the system knows from research, is that over supervision is not good, and that you said text reminders for court. That's like a text message to your cell phone.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then the new system is going to be kind of like a reminder system, or it's more than just that?
It's going to be more than just a reminder system. So they'll be able to answer questions. It'll be able to communicate with our officers through our new case management system, in which these will be attached to as well. So there'll be an increased convenient way of communication beyond a text message, but text messages will still be in place as well.
So if I have a client who needs to get an interlock removal order because, well, I guess y'all don't supervise. Well,
They can.
yeah, they can. So someone needs to swap their device they're on bond for DWI, and they have a blow device in their car. They have to blow into every time, and they get a new car, or the judge tells them to get rid of that and get a different kind of device. They have to get a piece of paper to take to the place to get it out of their car. And instead of having to come down to the courthouse, they can communicate that through the app or through the internet or through a kiosk with their supervision officer, and the supervision officer, in theory, will be able to send them back the paperwork they need?
Or just at least be able to communicate in that remote space.
Okay.
And so we're just trying to, take advantage of the trend of technology. We use our phones for everything, right?
Okay.
We go leave our wallets and purses and even jackets places, but if we leave our phone, we go back for them.
Right.
And so
You said there was another thing that you was working on, so I think that's amazing. I think app check-ins would be great. I think keeping up with technology would be amazing.
I want to ask about that. So the app check-ins, is that, we're going to talk about some things like waiving appearances and pretrial services and with that kind of stuff. What are they going to check in for? What does someone need to check in with pretrial services? Can you help explain that a little bit?
So if they're ordered under our supervision, we're responsible for their court appearance, their court compliance, and their public safety.
Right.
And so a lot of that check-in right now happens in the office, and it's based on their supervision level as well. So we have now what we call a differential levels of supervision. So based on their level of risk, if you will, or conditions, the measurement and frequency of their contacts with our office. But right now, all of those check-ins are in person, and some of them are by way of phone.
Okay.
What this technology would do is give an opportunity for those in person, unless they have to come down for a urine analysis or something that cannot be done remotely.
You don't want to pee on their phone.
Definitely not. Definitely not. We wouldn't feel it or see it anyway. But we would. What we're trying to do is increase that oversight. If you look at the time that people spend on their phones, this is getting into that vein.
Sure.
And so they're able to, it can update their phone numbers as well, real time in that space, update their contact, their addresses as well, and then they'll be able to answer questions as well. There's going to be a limited amount of stuff they can do on the apps in terms of that free flow, but it gives us another opportunity to make it convenient, if you will, and we're hoping that this will increase their pretrial success. That is our hope.
So let's talk, there's 3 different forms of it, but one will be the app. So you could go to like the Google Play Store or iTunes Store and search for Harris County Pretrial Services, and the theory is eventually there'll be an app there.
Yep.
And everyone will have to go down when they're on supervision. If you're going to use the app rather than the internet or the kiosk, you got to go download that app and install it.
Yep.
And then it'll connect you through like your SPIN number.
It'll have a unique login.
Okay.
They will have a unique login. Either we're thinking now, we're still trying to work out the details of it, but
obviously.
the kiosk, we were thinking either have either a biometric where they do a fingerprint at the kiosk remotely, but on the web base, which can be done in any computer, even on the phone, or this actual app, they'll have a unique login that we issued at the time of them being placed under our supervision.
Go for it.
Well, you also said that one concern is not over supervision, right? So this is not done in an effort to start to micromanage people more and it's actually supposed to be more convenient.
Absolutely.
And the goal is more convenience means more appearances. And
the population in which we supervise, oftentimes, they work. If they have job, they work job. They don't have bank time. They can't get away from those. They have other obligations, and so we want to have that oversight, and they can be on their phone in their locations and stay in touch with us.
Okay.
And so it's meant to be not an overburden for them, but actually meant to be more convenient for them and give us that additional oversight without doing them harm. So we're hoping that our intent of this is that this will increase our outcome measures of court appearance. It will be more convenient for the defendants. We'll have that additional oversight because because sometimes, they may have a question outside of hours, and
Sure.
so they can do that on their smartphone, and then once we get back in the office, we can reply to that. So absolutely, and so we'll be able to communicate to that as well. And so we're just trying to make this thing as ultimately, when the person is released, they're responsible for their compliance, right? Ultimately, but what can we do as a county, as a department, to put them in the best position to be successful? And that's what we're looking to do. That technology, again, does exist on, I think, the web-based check-ins exist in the federal system. I think there's a probation department in New York that does a kiosk. And so, but on any state or local pretrial, not three of those, no one does all three.
One of the things that come to mind I think that's amazing. I think we keep up with technology. However, I represent a lot of indigent clients, and keeping up with their phones and phone numbers is a task in and of itself. And so what I'm concerned about is that an individual comes and gets the app and they're signed up for app check-in, for example, but then their service gets cut off and they lose their phone and they can't afford anything else. And so now they're not either informed enough or knowledgeable enough on their own part to say, I don't have a phone anymore, I can't check in. I'm afraid that then they say, well, I guess they'll come get me when they get me, versus maybe saying, I should probably go to the Pretrial Services over downtown and check in and be like, hey, I don't have my phone anymore. Have you thought about the scenario that most of my indigent defendants, I'm having 2 or 3 phone numbers for them throughout the course of the year of their trial?
2 or 3.
At least 2
or 3 in a month.
2 or 3. Right. And so I that might be a problem. And good thing that you have such and this is where this, I guess, your executive team comes in for this individual who's writing, I guess, to get some money for the grant. That is something to consider, and I'm sure she has. And have you all talked about those kind of things?
So we won't fully go away from in-office check-ins. So, if people don't have the technology, obviously they'll be able to do that. But what we've wrote into the grant is to be able to provide burner phones for people.
I was about to say, where's my
Really?
bank's phone? Where's my bank's phone at?
So we've written that into the grant, and so we're looking again to be able to, so that we can help assist those those transient pop, or the pop that has the indigency or not able to afford that they'll still be able to be in compliance as well.
Well, and it's probably cheaper. And at the end of the day, you can get a burner phone for nothing these days versus someone getting arrested, processed, coming in, man hours, taxpayer money. It's probably cheaper to just give them a burner phone so they can check in, maybe.
For all the reasons that you listed, but also it's cheaper for us to do that in the time that our pretrial failure to appear investigator would spend
Right.
on that case. We actually save money by issuing a burner phone.
So that's why I was kind of asking the practicality. You go download the app, or you go to a computer, you go to a website, or you go to the kiosk. The kiosks will be located around the courthouse area or around the county?
So we're looking to put them into existing county locations.
All around the county?
Yeah. So
Awesome.
so we got to kind of like this heating map and know where our population is by way of zip code. And so we may put them in the libraries or any other county buildings. We're trying to stay away from some of the law enforcement locations,
smart,
if you
yeah.
will, but just try to make a space where people would go in, so it won't be any barriers for them, if you will. So we're thinking about that, and we're going to finalize that, and once we get funded.
But if their number changes, because my clients' numbers change 2 or 3 times in a month, like I said, but they could go in with their login and they can update, like you said a few minutes ago, they can say my number's changed.
Absolutely.
But that's going to come down to they have to be responsible enough to do that, right?
One of the things that concerns me is that are you going to be able to track these phones? I'd imagine so. Are there any privacy concerns regarding that? And in the event that an individual, are they going to be ordered to, hey, look, I don't have a phone. Well, here's your burner phone. Now you do have a phone, and now you got to take it.
Yeah, because they say I don't want the phone.
Right.
Do the kiosk, or I'll come in person.
Right.
Yeah. So we're looking at this as a treatment or as an opportunity, and not necessarily as something that's going to be court ordered per se, or have a connection to a court order, but something that we're doing within the department to be able to assist them out. And so, so we're not looking for this to be punitive from that standpoint. We're trying to make this thing as convenient as possible, because when we looked at our failure to appear reasons, there were ones that we can identify were ones that included transportation barriers, whether they had transportation that broke down or just didn't have any at all. So one of the reasons why we instituted within the last year a pilot program to give bus passes out.
How did that go?
And it's going really well. We've had some very good feedback. So all they do is they come in, they're asking, they say, hey, we need bus passes. We give them 2. We've had some stories where they express their sincere gratitude because it assisted them with getting to court, so on and so forth. So for us, even us funding that or using that as a pilot, we save money as well.
Sure.
by giving those, and we're watching that as well. But by giving those bus passes, again, it reduces the time on task for our failure to appear investigator having to investigate one person, which
Right.
can be upward of 8 to 20 hours.
Right.
And so we're not looking to, overall, this is looking to be more convenient. The accountability piece is just that they have access 24 hours. That's what it is, but it's not meant to be heavy-handed, if you will, from that standpoint.
Well, it's accountability just in the sense of, hey, and this is a frustration I have. Hey, you got a new phone number. Call and tell me.
Yeah.
Or log in and tell us, And I don't think that's asking too much, especially, hey, you don't have to spend any money. You're accused of something, you maybe didn't do it, but you're out of jail and it didn't cost you any money. And all you got to do is just make sure we have a way to contact you.
And you think about phone numbers, since we went from actually dialing a number and they're stored in phones, many people don't even know their own phone numbers or other people's phone because they just go to a name and they punch it in. So one of the things that we even did in our pretrial office under the umbrella of procedural justice is that we put charge stations in there. So when sometimes when the defendant is getting out of jail, their phone is dead, or if they've caught the bus downtown, their phone is dead, and so we may need those numbers, those reference numbers from their phone, or so on and so forth. So we put charge stations in our office so that when they go in, they can charge any type of phone and sit, while they're in our office to be able to help with that as well. So we're trying to be sensitive to those things and do everything we can from a county-wide standpoint within reason. Obviously within reason and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, to try to put the defendants in the best position to be successful.
What's her other job, her other duty? You said there were 2. One of them is these new proposals, but I thought you mentioned two things that she's really working on.
So the big proposal is that, but she's doing a lot of just keeping us updated on research.
Oh, right.
On what's coming out every anytime that anything's coming out that'd be relative to us as well. She recently was able to, we were able to get fortunate to get a Harvard fellow assigned to our department. So we have a year fellowship with them as well. So that person is going to be assigned to her as well to assess us in some processes and see where we become more efficient. Eventually, what that person is going to oversee as well is an internship program. So we're looking to partner with we're going to start with, I think, UHD downtown and try to partner where we take on some interns for a year or a semester, they'll be able to get college credits, but we'll get some time on task and some duty
free
work.
labor,
Absolutely, and not have to, charge the taxpayers for that. So she'll have that responsibility as well. But she's responsible for our research initiatives, which is critical.
Right.
I'm currently working on my doctorate in social work at the University of Southern California, and my focus is promoting smart decarceration during the pretrial stage in Harris County, Texas. And promoting smart is using decarceration.
I like that word.
It's going to spell check. Anytime you type it out, it's going to always say red.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to. So it's going to have the red squiggly lines up under it. But it is to address mass incarceration, if you will.
Sure.
And so we are smart portion is using data, research, and best practices. And so for us to have, in-house person to be able to do that for us is huge for us.
Sure.
And for the county to fund it, we're certainly grateful. Everything that they've promised us since we arrived, 2 years, 10 months, 12 days, and about 20 hours or so ago, they've delivered on. And so we feel very fortunate to be in Harris County.
There are some issues within the defense community that are that that are issues within the defense community. So, for example, one of them that comes to mind is there are times, and I have had clients where pretrial will impose conditions that aren't ordered by the judge. It's a big problem.
Okay.
And judges have been, some of the judges I've talked to have been extremely upset. I'll give you the case numbers too afterwards, where the judge will order, let's just say, no condition of X on the bond.
Okay.
However, they get to pretrial services, and pretrial services is adamant and will not back down that they have to do X. Okay? Then we get the call from the client as they come out livid and freaking out and not knowing what to do. Other times, other issues that we've had within the defense bar, and I can give you those case numbers as well, are when a defendant's court appearance is waived, but they're supposed to check in after court. So the judge will say, look, you don't even have to come to court. We're just going to off-docket you for 2 or 3 months, and you come back on that particular day. And so that individual, pretrial, will say, hey, call them and say, hey, you're supposed to check in. And the client will say, no, my lawyer got the court reset, and now I'm freaking out. And so they call the lawyer and freak out and say, hey, pretrial services is telling me that they're going to issue a warrant, which I know you guys can't issue warrants, but in their mind, it's issue a warrant to tell the judge that I'm in trouble, that I'm not in court, and you told me that I'm not supposed to be in court. I think those are 2 very big issues that are a big problem.
Well, there's a third one, along the lines of the second one, is you already do text message notifications and reminders with some folks, right? If they register a number and all that. I've had clients who I get their appearance waived, and then I schedule my docket for myself, based on not having people waiting. So I have a case that's going to be waiting, and the prosecutor's there, and my client's not. I'm going to go to that one a little bit later on. I'm going to go to the ones where I got a live body in the courtroom. So then by the end of the day or the morning, I get to court where my client's not supposed to be there because I've had their appearance waived, and they're welcome to come. And I get there, and there's a very frustrated, angry client sitting there who's been there for 2 hours. And I'm like, what are you doing here? It's like, I got a text message said I had to be in court. They're going to issue a warrant. And I'm like, ooh, did my office call you? They're like, no. I'm like, do you have the reset from last time where I wrote your appearance is waived? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, you didn't have to be here. Well, I got the text message, so I came, and I've been here for 2 hours. So, and I've talked to some judges about maybe adding a spot on the reset form. They can check and say appearance waived, and then the clerk's office can add a place in there too, and then y'all can see that. Yeah. But these are, I guess if we're going on because I have so many great things to say about pretrial services.
Right, but I wanted to bring this up to you.
Only department that gets people out of jail, right?
I
and
agree.
Keeps them out. So my biggest fan right here.
Yes, and
so,
I'll see.
But there are some kinks.
There's some kinks, man. And today,
the great thing is the director came here for a second time. He wants to talk to us, talk to the viewers, and he's not running away when we're saying we got a couple kinks.
And one thing what happened to me today on a client. It was a no contact order. He got a text that he was supposed to call in. He called in, and the pretrial asked him, where are you living? And he said, I'm living at this particular address, which initially the no contact order said you can't go. But about a month ago, I went up to the judge, and the judge rescinded the order. And then the pretrial services officer today said, and he was like, hey, no, judge said I could go back to the place. But the pretrial services officer literally said, no, you can't, and I'm reporting you, and good luck, because there's a warrant going to issue for you. My guy calls me in a panic, and I call pretrial services back. I get to a voicemail, and it's the second voicemail I've left them because I called them after the court when we got this order rescinded. Hey, no more of this condition. And once again, I got a voicemail, and once again, I told them the cause number and where to find it. There are some kinks, and those are some and from what I understand, some of it lies within the court to be sending the new adjusted orders or the new whatever they're ordering to pretrial services and them to receive it. How are you communicating with courts? And what's your mechanism and methodology for doing that? I mean, is there something that y'all don't have pretrial services in every court stationed like a community liaison officer, but y'all have to be communicating with the courts in some regard, and how are y'all doing that?
So let me just say this: all 4 of the things that you guys are I say that we're we're looking to improve. We've improved a lot in the last several years. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not. Are we where we were? We are not.
No,
And so
yeah,
we're absolutely
Oh, yeah.
improving. So I think the concerns that you've itemized are very, very legitimate. The first, if I can go back
Yeah.
to, so sometimes there's conditions as versus requirements. So the conditions are ordered by a judge, but there are requirements as it relates to when they come to our office, certain things they have to produce, so on and so forth. And I'm not sure, an example that you have without looking specific at the case.
This one was an interlock.
was-
Judge said no interlock, and then he went to pretrial and said, "You better get this interlock."
Okay, and was it on a previous order on the
It was-
at the
it was-
magistrate?
Yes, it was on a previous order. Yes, yes.
So that goes
Yeah.
to the no contact as well. So if it was on a previous order and the court, because the court can either call us or oftentimes they'll tell the defendant to come over to us, or they're supposed to email through we have a PTS, pretrial no-show email address that they're supposed to say, hey, this order got updated. Because if they don't do that, there's no way we can know that oftentimes.
Right.
And so that communication on both of those, on the first one as well as the fourth one that you guys mentioned in terms of the it's a communication where they either call our office, and we don't have people staffed in the courtroom because the volume doesn't
Sure.
dictate that at this point in time.
Right.
And so they call our office, we send officers over there, they go in and address whatever the concerns are, and then they circle back and go to the other courts and then come back and continue to manage their cases. So in those two spaces, there's probably was a communication breakdown with the court coordinator either sending an email or calling our office for that standpoint.
Understood,
And so,
yeah.
but again, even though that puts fright in those defendants, I'm pleased to hear that my staff was on top of it.
They are on top of it.
In some
And they don't-
ways.
they
And
don't miss anything.
They're like, hey,
Yeah.
so we're trying to, from that standpoint. And then, from the text message, the text messages are pulled from it was GEMS, but I think it's JWAP now.
It's JWAP.
So and it's based on just the court date. And so it's pulled, the only way
Yeah.
it pulls directly from there. So there's no way that the text message would know that the appearance was waived.
Unless, like I said, we add on the reset form a box.
Absolutely.
The clerk adds a box in their system, and then the pretrial system links to that and goes, oh, wait, that box is checked. Don't send the text message.
And one of the things that we can adjust, and there's some limitation to the space on the text message, but we may send a text, but also say, please contact your attorney.
That'd be great.
To see if your appearance is waived.
Hey.
If we add that in the text message, if we have enough space, that may be able to address the problem.
Yep.
One other little tip.
Okay.
They don't have to be in all caps.
They're on camera.
My clients show me. I'm like, oh,
screaming.
they're yelling at you.
They're screaming at, okay, they scream.
Can I do a
Well, I think that's why some of them, they freak out. I mean,
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
freak out. And they're
They
like,
do. They do.
Oh my God, what is going on?
Can I do a demonstrative real quick? This is my favorite thing. See if you can hear this. I'm calling your office.
All right.
I feel bad for whoever's on the job right now.
Which number?
3530. PR bond.
They not there.
They're not there?
Yeah.
This is the one I call all the time. Well, that's what I was going to say is anytime, because you
Supervision.
mentioned a second ago, anytime that somebody, what's this one? I saved this one as Harris County Pretrial Services PR bond people.
Okay.
But anytime I need something, I've called there at midnight before.
Yeah.
And when someone's getting magistrated, and I just get a little bit of information over to them, can you get my client early presented? And they do it.
Yeah.
And then things are they work so smoothly. And that's one thing I wanted to ask. I'll stop this. But one thing I wanted to ask is, okay, so Dennis has been there before the new shift in attitudes and the lawsuit, the creation of pretrial services as it is right now. Some of those other folks maybe were there before as well. Some are new, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, JV, disagree with me. I have had some negative experiences with pretrial services, but those are rare. Mm-hmm. The people who I work with on a daily basis over there, Trentis, Yolanda, I think did y'all lose Miss Gramble?
Yes.
I'm
She went to
sorry
law
about
school.
that. Oh,
Oh, wow.
She got a
was-
full ride.
She
full ride?
was talking
full
about it.
ride to Howard Law
She
School.
was talking
no
about it.
way. Why didn't you tell me
She
that?
started with us as an intern.
So that
She was an intern through Precinct 1, the lead program. We hired her as a pretrial officer, and then in a couple years, she went to law.
They're all great.
Yes. Your personnel
Yeah.
is
How do you? But
amazing.
So it's so consistent, and you're hiring people that care about, like, you know what, we don't need to go this way and make this harder on people. We need to. But you're hiring people who just like that's their philosophy.
Yeah.
You're not having to like tell them, oh, we don't do that here. You're bringing people in who just don't even want to do that kind of thing. What is that? There's like a box on the application, or like, are you an asshole or are you not an asshole? Like,
What do you look towards because your staff and the people that are building the support group for this pyramid of that you're building,
the boots on the ground
are amazing.
Yeah.
I've a lot of times as attorneys we're like, oh, who's that CLO or who's this particular person? We have to approach them and talk to them and ask them for something, and hope that we don't get our heads chewed off because
the CLO works for probation, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
different departments. And
when we're dealing with pretrial services, I can get someone on the phone at any time. Mm-hmm. I do think that you guys need more floaters. You guys need more people. I do think that.
Yeah, you can tell the commissioners all watch.
Yeah.
But when they come, your troops are amazing. They are supportive. They are professional. They are smart. They're responsive.
Mm-hmm. They care.
They care.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So let me say this. I inherited a great group of people. When I got here, I inherited just this great seasoned group of people. And as we're hiring and interviewing as well and staffing up, we're looking for good people. Not just people that are looking for a job in terms of a paycheck,
Sure.
but not even the folks that are looking for a career path and like this is a step on their ladder, but kind of those folks that know this is kind of like it's bigger than that. Like we have the opportunity to unearth mass incarceration, right? This infrastructure is meant to outlive us and address some things that have been going on for years. And so when we interview and from our leadership team all the way down, we're very purposeful. Even with the leadership team, when I came on, I interviewed all those executive leadership that were in place
Sure.
at the time. And so I did have a conversation with Dennis and say, hey, you've been under a couple of leaders. We have a different vision. Where you at? And so we had some very open, honest, candid. I tell people I'm not easy to work for because I keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but I'm fair. I'm very, very fair, and I care about our people. And so we're going to celebrate our tenured staff in September. So we got about 43 people of our 154 that are 10 years and 20 years and above. And so we're going to have a celebration for them because we appreciate they have went through a lot. They went through where their entire jobs have changed.
Yeah.
Not the why, but the what, the when, the where changed on them. Then you had Hurricane Harvey. You got all this reform. And so the pressure has been on them, and the people that you've mentioned in the court staff, those people are wonderful. And so in every aspect of our operations, I feel very, very, very fortunate to be able to lead such a dynamic group of people that do care about people. At the end of the day, they care about people. So of any organization or in any organization, the most valuable resource is the human resource. This is where we spend 90% of our funds at as well. And so this is how the service get delivered. So we want the people to know that we believe in them. So one of the things I've created in recent months was a Directors Advisory Council. What that does is for all line level staff and first line supervisors, they have a intentional monthly purposeful meeting with me to voice their concerns.
Interesting.
And so we got about 20 people that volunteered for that, and we just had a meeting the other day, and they're giving me some little things that they want. Hey, Mr. Banks, can we get air fresheners in this, or can we do this? And that's kind of even where that idea for the charge station came out of a suggestion from our staff. So our staff, those boots on the ground officers are brilliant, and they're the expert at what they do. And so some of them find ways to be more efficient. What we trying to pull from them now is, hey, if that's so efficient for you, let's standardize that from a training standpoint and make that be the standard across the board. And so we got some very good people. We're hiring good people. We're very, very fortunate to have the resources that we have. And I feel very, very honored to have 153 people under my watch and being responsible for in that standpoint.
Let's talk about
But
some
you
of
still
the.
didn't tell us how you do it.
It goes like this.
Yeah.
So there's like a no asshole box.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
So
right?
we have this. We do a lot of research on interview questions. We sit down. So I'm involved in every interview that includes executive level or supervisor level. So I'm involved in all those, and I try to train our hiring managers as well to say, hey, when they ask a two-part question in the interview, if you ask a two-part question, very complicated because you're going to have to multitask if you're a member of pretrial service. So a person can say, hey, I can multitask, but I can ask you a two-part question. If you only answer one part, then that can give me some insight if you can actually multitask.
Sure.
You know, if you heard both portions of it. Even if you say, I answered the first part, but tell me the first part, the second part again,
Right.
you consciously know that you've been asked the two-part question, where some people will not answer the two-part.
Right.
They'll just answer the one part of the question. And so those things kind of are telling. And so some of that is the questioning, the line of questioning. Some of that is the things that we vet. We use the recommendations and so on and so forth. And so we do a lot of different things, if you will, to try to get good people in. And we have at least 3 people in every interview. And so each person has an opportunity to score that person metrically wise 1 to 5. 5 being great, 1 being not so great. And then when we get those, say for instance 3 people sitting in on the interview, they score 1 to 5, then we total those out and we look at the top 3. That get the highest score, and then we have a conversation. And sometimes it is the top candidate in terms of score that gets the offers, but sometimes the second candidate in terms of the score is a better fit for our needs at that time.
Okay.
And so we have these departmental needs, and we're looking for dynamic people to add to a group that's already dynamic as well. And so we've been very, very fortunate that, you don't get that thing right 100% of the time. So sometimes you do hire some people that didn't check that box and they end up being a problem for you from an organizational standpoint, and we have to move on and move forward. But for the most part, we try to hire good people, and we try to retain good people and sustain good people as well. So since we've arrived, we've been able to give, raises every year, which they hadn't had raises in a very long time. Now you can't win the money game, right? Because after you give a raise, I think research says it's about 2 pay periods, and people adjust to that in terms of their norm. So money is not a long-term motivator, but we've been able to say, hey, we appreciate you. This is our little token of things as well. The other thing that we did for them as well is that we gave them shirts. I don't know if you guys see them on Friday.
Yeah.
So they got the pretrial shirts. So the first year we gave everybody the black shirt. This year we gave them the blue shirt.
Yeah, the blue.
Yeah, the blue was in next year. And so from a departmental standpoint, we just said, thank you. We appreciate you. And so when you appreciate people, people will run through we believe that people will run through a brick wall for you. And so we just try to communicate that all the way down and hold our leaders. We hold our leaders to a very high standard. And like I said, it's not easy in this space, but we believe that everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, not only just the defendants, but definitely the defendants, but every department that we interface with, with each other. We need to take care of each other. We win together and we lose together.
Let's talk about some of the services that Pretrial Services provides. Let's start with urinalysis, right? Okay, so the judge
You always go right to PP.
Judge orders urinalysis as something that Pretrial Services needs to look at. Okay, so where do they go? I know they go. Is it 102 now?
Yes.
So they go to 102 San Jacinto and they go to a window and they say, I'm here.
Yep.
So let's say an individual has to have urinalysis done. Where does he go?
So they come to 102 San Jacinto, which is our displaced location. This is the space that we've been in since Hurricane Harvey. So it's our temporary home or continued temporary home for our supervision side. We've been working with the county and various county departments where we're going to be, that supervision is going to be relocated to Peden building, which is right next to JPC.
Okay.
So that's going to be that's our long-term plan for our long-term home for our supervision division. But they will come to 102 San Jacinto and they'll come in, they'll check in at the desk with our docket clerk, and then they'll have a seat and we'll let them know. We have a female urinalysis tech. Where before we only had a male, and the female officers will have to jump in. So now we've hired a temporary because we've seen the demand, so we can try to get people in and out. So they'll come to that. They'll have to do a thumb from identification standpoint, but we have 2 restrooms in that building that are quarantined, if you will, for UAs.
Is there an officer that goes in and watches the UA being conducted?
There is for each identified gender, there is a male or female officer that goes into and watch the sample.
Is the sample given, is it an immediate result?
So you get the immediate stuff, but all has to go through lab confirmations.
That's the other thing. So is the immediate result done in-house, and then is it sent out to are there confirmatory tests? Because years back, Lisa Andrews had a big deal about the tests were coming out presumptively positive for cocaine. I think was the issue, one of the issues, or a particular type of substance, and then there was no confirmatory result after that. So I guess, how do you test it initially and that it comes out positive or negative, and then if it does come out positive, you send it for a confirmatory test? Is that true?
Part of what Lisa found is, I think this was the probation office was doing this, CSCD, Community Supervision and Corrections Department. They were having 100 people would come in and do UAs that day, and they would just okay, pee in the cup, put the cup there, pee in the cup, put the cup there, pee in the cup, put the cup there. And stuff was getting splashed around. The sticks, the little color sticks, were staying on them for the whole day. And then the manufacturer was like, no, after 10 minutes, they'll change whatever color. So kind of quality control, I guess, is what JV's looking at.
Yeah. So how are they initially tested, and then where do you send them for a confirmatory test?
So we have a refrigerator in our so when we test them, we lock it, secure it, and put it in our refrigerator before we send it out for lab confirmation as well. Our vendor is Task, and so we send.
That's what I was going to ask. Who's your vendor?
Yeah, so we send it off to Task, and they get and we kind of consider that is not until it's confirmed. That's when the notification comes up in terms of notifying a court that something is positive. In the population that we service, though, of the percentage that we test, only about 35% test positive.
And is that after a confirmatory test?
Yes.
Those are after confirmatory numbers?
Yes.
And
that's lower than the national rate of drug use.
Yes, absolutely. And so what we try to do.
So you're saying that people actually do what the judges tell them?
And that substance abuse in terms of those urinalyses are not as pronounced as the perception of them are.
Yeah,
and so
my own perception, I'm like, wait, that's.
So what we've been trying to do in our differential levels, and even you talked about conditions as well. If you recall back in the day or before we put the differential levels in place in July of 2017, everybody that was under pretrial supervision got the same conditions, and they had to come in and do a urine analysis. Now it's differential, so not everybody gets a urine analysis. So we're very strategic about that. What we try to do encourages, give some guidance and some suggestive ideologies, if you will, to the judges to say, hey, if you don't have an identified substance abuse issue or even concern, then we don't want to order that, because we want to be good in terms of our resources,
right.
Making sure we're using our resources properly.
What exactly do you have a 10 panel that you're testing on urine analysis, or is it, does it change is it differential?
No, it's actually the same each time. I think it is a 10 panel. I got to get to the details of it, but I think it is a 10 panel or 8 to 10 panel, one of the two.
What happens and are these samples stored? So you send them to Task, T-A-S-K,
yes.
And what happens if a defense attorney wants to retest some of these samples? Are they kept in Task, or are they destroyed?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Because I do know that
he's preparing for a hearing.
Absolutely, I see. He went into all lawyers.
Where are you going to be at 10 a.m. next Tuesday? I need a witness in my trial.
He started rubbing his hands together, he's like, "No, Mr. Banks."
Body language turned towards you
on June 3rd, and he went into all. No, go on.
I think it's a fair question, though. I want to hear the answer.
Absolutely.
Do you know? I mean, if you don't know, that's fine. But is a defense attorney able to, or even a department or a judge who wants to retest a sample, for example? Is that ability available, or do we know?
I'm not sure. You know what? We'll check into that, because that's more in the weeds, and then we've haven't had that issue under my watch yet.
I actually haven't had a client's bond revoked for a positive UA in 9 or 10 months.
What are that's drug testing. So what about Interlock? And do you have?
That's an issue. Interlocks is an issue because I'm coming to court sometimes, finding my client. Okay, we're here for court. And there's a warrant out for my client that happened 3 weeks ago because somebody came and told the judge there was violations. And I'm like, why didn't I get told? Why didn't I have a chance to talk to my client and figure out what's going on? Interlocks is a good one.
Who are the providers, and do you have any issues with the mechanics or the processes of the reporting part of it? So, for example, Justin said, obviously a provider submitted a report. I don't know how. That would be great to explain how a provider submits this report. I guess somewhere in pretrial services they get a flag, and then at some point they go to a judge, and then a judge may or may not issue a warrant. Talk to us about that process. Do you have any specific providers that you all use, and what are some some of the good points and technical difficulties that you might have with them?
So the Initial interlock process is probably going to change as a result of the settlement of the misdemeanor lawsuit, because what's a part of one of the components of that is that here as pretrial services going to have to be responsible financially for those that are indigent. Currently,
Providing the device.
Wow.
providing the device.
That's a huge.
That's huge.
So right now, the relationship, we don't have a direct relationship with the vendor. We have a list of vendors that we give out, and the defendants can choose who that, and we're not steering them towards anyone. So we don't have a direct relationship with them, so we can't pay them directly. With the misdemeanor settlement, if it goes into effect, if the judge accepts it and so on and so forth, that's going to change the process where we're going to probably have to identify, a smaller group of vendors and have a direct relationship with them to be able to offset those needs, if you will.
I am now providing Interlock services. I'm selling my. I'm kidding.
Oh, guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Is he one of the vendors?
I always see.
I am now a vendor for Interlock
Oh,
services.
gosh. Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, but
so
right.
different vendors have different things, but we get a notification, we get a monthly download, and those type of deals, and so we go in and review it, and then we go and make we're going to change the name from a bond violation report to actually a compliance report.
I think
And
that's good.
So we're trying to do some things, inverse in terms of flipping things to a positive, to not be so punitive even in what we're doing from even a verbiage standpoint. So our compliance report was going to be reported based on that as well. But again, there are various vendors, and there's different levels and different qualities and different
Do
things.
you see those different qualities, and have you been able to identify some that you feel are better than others? And I'm not asking you to name names or anything.
I would like names. Which ones?
Yeah, I
are the
don't.
ones that are easy to get around?
That was I can answer that question. I don't really deal with it like that from that standpoint. And I don't think my folks have an opinion that we're going to allow them to speak loud about.
Right.
So
You're saying ignition interlock devices. Are you also including the portable devices, the in-home devices, and the scrams? Because a lot of my indigent clients, a lot of them don't have cars.
Yep. So right now we have a direct relationship with like the EM vendors. So if they can't afford them, we're paying for them.
What's
we got
EM?
Electronic monitoring.
Okay.
We have a direct relationship with TAS. So there's a fee for the drug test, but we're paying for it anyway, whether they pay the fee or not. They may have a bill, but we don't go after them for those bills. We don't have a direct relationship with the IID providers. With the misdemeanor settlement, we're going to switch them over to this space. So we'll be paying for it, or have a relationship with them, and so we'll have some more control, if you will, over that. And I'm not sure if it's going to go through an RFP process or what the process is going to be in terms of being able to identify those vendors. But we're looking for some ones that can provide a good service for us at a good price, if you will, to make sure that we've had a major increase in DWIs and IIDs under our supervision. That population in the past had posted surety bonds, and we're going up under CSCD from in our bifurcated system of supervision. But we've gotten a lot of that. So we actually had a meeting with that group today. It's about 10 officers that we have assigned to that. And so we got a lot of new people. We got some seasoned folks in there. We got some new people that we're bringing along that we're getting up to speed as well. So because we want to make sure, because that is a public health concern, if you will, within this community. And we want to make sure we're overseeing those individuals from a compliance standpoint.
We got 2 minutes left. What are some things that us lawyers can tell our clients about pretrial services? Some of the pitfalls, some of the things to remember. What would be some things that, when somebody says pretrial services, and we have to explain something to our client about what you're there for, and what are some things to make sure that their relationship with pretrial services goes smoothly? So
our department is an impartial department. And so we're not for or against, but we're here to provide a service. So we're, and those services, our mission statement is that we provide accurate and timely information to the judges to make an informed pretrial release decision. And then the backside of that is to monitor those defendants that are under our supervision to ensure court compliance, court appearance, as well as public safety. So our mission is guided towards making sure we provide this, making the decision be informed as based on research and data that's available, but also putting the defendants in the best position to be successful for pretrial success. So our goal and our outcome measures that we, 2 major outcome measures is appearance rates, or what we normally call failure to appearance rate, or new criminal activity, or what we call a safety rate. We're trying to use the inverse of those things as well because of the negative connotation. And so I want the appearance rate to be in 100. That's our goal. We want the new criminal activity rate to be 0, or the safety rate to be 0. So we're striving for those things, and so those things have an impact. Those are numbers, those are measurables, but those are people behind those as well.
Right.
And so we're trying to make sure from an organizational standpoint that we are not invariably doing things that are causing people to fail. And so what can we do from a procedural justice standpoint? What can we do from a research standpoint? What can we do from a best practice standpoint to continue to put people in the best position? Now, we know that even with doing that, there's some people that's going to fail because they're intentional and they may want to fail. They're not, going to respond to the stuff. But those may be the outliers, and so we're trying to do everything we can to put people in the best position to be successful. As with me as a director, I'm trying to do that with my staff. We're trying to put them in the best position to be successful in their respective roles as well. So we're there trying to fulfill a mission. We have a purpose. We have a destiny. It's bigger than a job. It's bigger than an organization. This is my, I said this maybe before, but this is about my purpose. This is why I was created to be in this space. So I feel, I'm kind of walking in my own purpose and destiny in this space. So.
How does it feel to be part of the reformation of the Harris County bond system?
Fortunate. You feel very fortunate. You go through life at times, and sometimes you try to figure out what your purpose and what your destiny is. I, without a shadow of a doubt, know that I'm walking in that space. And so even as I work on my doctorate, I'm trying to become better even in that space for myself, to invest in myself. I'm also challenging, my staff. And so we do a lot of leadership training. We just did one this past weekend where we were training them on emotional intelligence, just not only be able to deal with your staff, but understand your emotions related to them as well as theirs. So we believe that growth and development will help everyone. And so we're trying to just become better each day. We really want to be a premier pretrial service agency.
Mr. Kelvin Banks, the top of the pyramid here at Pretrial Services and at the forefront of the bail revolution. Freedom. Freedom.
For all.
Free at last. Justin Harris, last words.
Oh, I got nothing. Thanks a lot for coming on, Kelvin. This was great. Seriously.
Kelvin Banks.
Thank you guys for having me.
We didn't even get through a quarter of what we could have.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll come back.
For HCLA and everybody else involved. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah.